thank you so much for coming. Allow me to introduce our wonderful guest, Jen Frank, who is a professional coach, by sharing her background really quick. So whether leading a workshop, facilitating a retreat, or working with an individual client, the core of Jen's work is all about personal and professional development, as well as empowering people to take charge of their lives and their careers to be leaders, whether they lead an organization, a team, or themselves. We all lead in some way, and it's Jen's great privilege to work with individuals and organizations in Memphis and beyond to be their very best. So for more information about Jen and her work, you can go to www.jenfrankcoaching.com. And with that being said, I will now pass it over to Jen to start our presentation. Again, thank you all so much for coming.
Okay, I hope everybody can hear me and see me. I'm so glad to be here with y'all today. My name is Jen Frank, and I'm a professional certified coach, and I do a combination of executive and life and career coaching, and I do trainings like this one. All my work is about empowering people to be great leaders, and that's really what self-care is all about. It's about personal leadership, okay? So it's about the priorities that you set for yourself to keep you healthy and take care of yourself physically, spiritually, emotionally, and mentally. As James said, we're going to be using the chat box today, not the Q&A box, and Jessica's going to monitor the chat box and let us know if anything's going on in there. I will answer questions around 1:30, so if you've got questions, hold on to those and we'll get them in the chat box later. And I'm not going to use PowerPoint today. You're going to see me. I will share my screen a couple of times, and we're going to do a couple polls as well, like James said. Okay, so I invite you to go ahead, put away the distractions for the next 40 minutes and really focus on your self-care and what that means for you. So like I said, I'm really happy to be here with y'all today. I'm sorry that it's not in person, so I can see your faces and hear your voices, but to get a sense of what everybody's situation is, I want to do a poll with 2 questions, okay? So Jessica is going to go ahead and launch that first poll. And the first question is to get a sense of what your work looks like right now, all right? And then the second question is to get a sense of what your household looks like, okay? So if you have a situation that's not represented in the polls, you are welcome to go ahead and put those in the chat box. And for both questions, you can check all that apply. It says multiple choice, but for both questions, you can check all that apply. We'll give people a second to answer that poll. Okay. We have almost everybody in, a couple more. Okay, well, let's go ahead and take a look at that first question, because everybody's pretty much in now. And I will tell you that 20 of 23 people, 96% of us are working from home. All right. We do have somebody out in the field serving customers and somebody working a side hustle too, but almost all of us are working from home right now, right? So this is new stuff for us. And let's look at that second poll. The answer that we get most of the time here, about 35%, a third of people are at home, them with their significant other. We've got some people also, about 26% are with their family of origin, the parents and siblings. 17% by themselves. 22% me with my significant other and children. And 30 all have pets. Good to know. So it sounds like the work situation is folks working from home, where the household situation, there's a bigger kind of smattering of different results there. We've got some people by themselves, we've got people with families of origin, we've got people with just a significant other, and then we've got folks who've got their own children and spouses at home. So that's a bigger variety on that second question. Thank you for answering that. It gives us a sense of what y'all are going through. And probably these questions here, we can take that poll down. Probably those questions, you know, those answers represent a change to your pre-COVID-19 world, right? And change can be really stressful for people. I have a 2-hour workshop I do called SelfCare and the Successful Life, and it demonstrates the link between self-care and success, and it gets people on the path to what real success looks like for them and the self-care that supports that. But today the environment is so different. And due to the underlying anxiety of life during COVID-19, self-care just got a lot more important. I know for myself that I need extra downtime and self-care right now just to get me back to kind of my normal, neutral emotional state. All right. So some recent research by Dr. Paul White shows that in the COVID world, people have 4 main new stressors. Okay, 4 main new stressors. The first one is not a surprise. The first one is health concerns. This is kind of sweet though, because people aren't as concerned about themselves as they are about their loved ones. They're actually most concerned about their loved ones. All right. The second main new stressor is finances, financial difficulties, or for people even who are still working, job insecurities. The third main new stressor is social isolation. We saw some of you are at home by yourselves, and knowing that extroverts are 2/3 of the population, well, you know, that's hard on people. We have also seen a lot of families where, for example, grandparents can't see grandchildren because the grandparents are too much at a health risk to do that. So social isolation is the third main new stressor. And the last one is new responsibilities. For those of you at home with your children trying to work full time and homeschool your children and put meals on the table, yeah, it's different than our normal routine. In addition to those 4 stressors, a lot of people are overwhelmed with the amount of new stuff, right? Normally experts tell us, oh, only make 1 change at a time. Don't make too many big changes at one time. And now everything's all different and new at the same time, right? I'm going to go through about a dozen things. You might see yourself in some of these things. Some of them may not apply to you. But even if they don't apply to you, know that they probably apply to somebody on this call, okay? So it's important that, you know, we understand what people are going through so we can kind of be more understanding and give each other a lot more grace during this period. Okay, so some of the new stuff that we are experiencing and grappling with right now includes changes to the work setting, right? Before this started, did you all have an office or a space to work from set up at home? Your daily routines are different. I'm not sure anybody misses their commute from day to day, but maybe, you know, your commute included a usual stop for coffee and breakfast. So that could be different. You know, now we get to decide every day, am I going to get dressed? Am I only going to get dressed from the waist up today? Could be. New things, technology. Did you have a good computer at home? Did you know how to use Zoom? I think we're all power users of Zoom at this point, but did you know that before? There's often a lot of confusion now about work roles. How do we share information? How do we delegate? How do we share resources? How do we work as a virtual team? I don't know how to communicate anymore, right? You used to pop into somebody's office or stop by their cubicle. And now it's like, how are we gonna do this? More new things, changing priorities. This is a big deal when the work priorities change from day to day. I have one client at a big local nonprofit, and they are constantly redoing the budget right now, right? Day to day, it's changing. We also have distractions. Some of you are at home with pets. Some have kids at home, spouses. Yeah, these family members, these are distractions. This is different. I've been in many meetings where all of a sudden you see somebody's cat's tail walk across, you know, they're walking across the keyboard, you see the tail go by on their screen. And routines are just upset. You know, a lot of us have a rhythm to our life. Maybe you go to the gym in the morning before you go to work, or you see a certain group of friends on Thursdays, right? That's kind of gone for us right now. A couple more of these new things, access or no access to the resources you need. Did you have decent Wi-Fi? Do you have files at the office that you need right now? Do you have a printer? Do you have the personal resources you need? Do you have masks, for example? And, you know, we're not going to get into the toilet paper discussion. I don't understand the hoarding, but that's a whole nother thing. That's for a different webinar. Also, people have new responsibilities, personal responsibilities. Like I mentioned, homeschooling kids, that's no joke. That's a full-time job all by itself, it sounds like. And food sources. So if your kids are home from school, do you have to stop and make them lunch now, right? That's different. If you're working full-time, that's new. Going to the grocery stores get kind of scary now, right? That's an adventure in and of itself. And a lot of people are, you know, they don't have the same social support system. They're not seeing family or going to church or seeing friends and coworkers on a day-to-day basis. And as we come out of quarantine, there's going to be new differences in our work and life routines every day. So just know this is a lot of change to deal with all at once. There's so much newness, so much uncertainty in this current environment. And your primitive brain, it gives you a lot of feelings about this, okay? Because your primitive brain equates uncertainty with death, okay? It's going to alert you to danger. So your primitive brain is going to give you feelings like fear, fight or flight, anxiety, but that part of your brain doesn't have language, right? The language centers in your modern brain and your prefrontal cortex. So all your primitive brain is going to do is keep telling you danger, danger. Yeah, be on alert. Okay, so it is natural to feel anxiety right now, emotionally and physically and mentally. A few of you probably are like, I love change, bring it on, let's do this. That's awesome. Just know that most of the people around you are going to have more anxiety than you. Okay, it could be quite a bit more. So just know that this is natural and normal. And the question becomes then, how can we address this anxiety and stress? Okay, how can we address the anxiety and stress? So here's what some of the leadership experts are saying, like David Rock over at the Neuro Leadership Institute. They want us to focus on 3 things right now. And I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and show you these 3 questions. Share. There we go. Here's what they want us to focus on right now. How are you taking care of yourself? How are you taking care of the people around you? And what are your priorities right now? Okay. Surprise. Self-care is at the top of the list. Okay, it wasn't really a surprise. We're going to keep coming back to these 3 questions, but we'll start with the first one. How are you taking care of yourself? Let's define self-care again, okay? This is the collection of activities that keep you healthy, emotionally, physically, spiritually, and mentally. Okay, that's what self-care is. I'm going to get rid of these 3 questions and unshare my screen. Okay, don't worry too much about those. I'll repeat the questions again, but I'm going to go ahead and post a blog, I think, on this talk today. And so you'll see those questions written up in the blog. There'll be a summary kind of this presentation in that blog. But so normally what I like to do is I like to ask a group, you know, why do we need to take care of ourselves, right? And folks usually tell me, you know, oh, so we can take care of other people better. And that's awesome, right? That's really nice. Usually the athletes also understand this. They understand that you work hard, stress your muscles, and then you have to rest and let the muscles repair. It's basic science, right? The body needs this. The body needs this. So athletes get it too. It's very rare though that anyone says, well, I deserve my self-care, right? Let's be clear on this. You do not have to earn your self-care. You are as worthy of your self-care as everybody else is, all right? And it's nothing you have to earn, and you don't have to take care of everyone else before you take care of yourself. That's not how this works, okay? The truth is that it's actually your job as a mature adult to meet your own needs, emotionally, physically, spiritually, and mentally, right? This is your job as a mature adult to meet your needs, all right? So you deserve your self-care too. A little caveat, self-care does not equal self-indulgence. They're not the same thing. Sure, that bottle of wine might relax you, but does it really take care of you? Overall, you should be getting healthier as you do self-care. So a glass of wine might be nice. The bottle, maybe not so much. Maybe we have kind of veered into self-indulgence at this point. Okay, so I see my self-care as a cup. Here we go, I have a cup. There's a cup. Okay, so what's inside the cup is my life energy, and it belongs to me. What overflows from the cup is for other people. Okay, so this implies you have to constantly refill your cup so there is overflow for other people. All right, now in an emergency situation, is it okay to, dip into your cup and take out and give to other people? Okay, sure, but it doesn't work as a long-term strategy. Okay, at the point where your cup is getting down here and it's almost empty, you're probably physically ill. And at that point, you have nothing to give to anybody else, to yourself, to take care of yourself, or to take care of others. All right, so just remember this. What's inside the cup is yours, and then you need to create overflow so you can give to others. Well, while I have this, I'm going to take a drink of water. All right, thank you. All right, so think about what takes care of you and refills your cup. A couple things that take care of me: cooking, doing yoga, regular dinners with my friends. Those are really important to me now. Both online to Zoom, and my closest friends and I, we use my one friend, she was just this morning, she sent Marco Polo from a closet, hiding from her child. And it's a big closet, but still, she was hiding in the closet. So these are new things that we haven't really seen before these times. So hopefully you've had a second to think about this, and you have your 3 top self-care practices in mind. What refills your cup? Okay, what refills your cup? These are your 3 top practices that you like to do regularly. So Jessica, we're going to do the next poll. If you'll put up the next poll, and I'm going to give you a couple instructions here. I want you to check your top 3 activities that you do regularly, and if there's something that's not on the list, go ahead and put that in the chat box. As you complete the poll, if there's things you've adapted a lot during this COVID-19 safer at home period, tell us about that too in the chat box. Tell us about that too. Give you a second to complete that poll. And these are your regular activities as you see. These are daily activities. It's not really, travel or vacations that you do once a year. This is your day-to-day stuff. All right. Okay, people are still coming in with those answers. All right, most of the folks look like they're in. So a couple notes while we wait for the last couple people to finish up the poll. Note that, video games are legit here if it's in balance, right? If we don't cross into self-indulgence. So a half hour of video games a day, hey, that might take care of you. Cool, maybe you play that with your friends or something. Great. Now, if you're playing video games 16 hours a day, hey, that's probably not self-care, right? That's not healthy. Right now, social media might not be good for you, or TV might not be good for you if you're using it to binge watch the news and it's making you anxious, right? So, we have to just kind of see for each of us what works. If you're feeling a lot of anxiety right now, we definitely don't want you to ignore that. And notice too, a lot of people said that they are, they're sleeping and taking care of themselves that way. 60% of people said that they're sleeping. And that's great. Sleep is a great indicator of your overall health. So let's see here what we've got for the poll results. So the big one's exercise. 77% of you said that you're exercising. That's great. That's great because you have to make a special effort to do that. So that's terrific. 68% of you said watching movies, TV, and reading for pleasure. And 59% said sleep. So those seem to be the biggest areas. We also have 45% spending time with family and friends and pets. 41% eating healthy. So those are big ones too. Learning, YouTube, listening to podcasts, reading, 32%. And then hobbies, playing music, arts and crafts, things like that, 27%. So everybody's reporting that they are doing some of this. Only 5% of people are playing video games, and about 23% are spending time on social media. So it could be that more of us are spending time on social media, but we don't consider it self-care. Could be, could be. All right. So thank you for participating in that poll. That's great information. And we can go ahead and close that poll out. Thank you, Jessica. Okay. So maybe you got some inspiration from others about things you might want to add to your self-care list. But please do the things that take care of you and fill your cup, right? And also show yourself some grace. If you don't feel like cleaning out all your closets or learning a new language right now, that's okay. That is okay. I'm going to close out this poll, and I'm going to share my screen again. I remember when I first saw this meme, and then I saw the corrected version. I was so glad to see the corrected version. So hopefully you can see this. It says, if you don't come out of the quarantine with a new skill, a side hustle, more knowledge, you didn't lack time, you lacked discipline. And I was like, oof, when I first saw it that way. And then somebody came in behind it, and they went ahead and they amended it and fixed it, which I really appreciated, because we're under a lot of pressure and anxiety, right? Between those 4 main new stressors and all the new stuff, right? The dozens of new things. It's a lot. It's a lot. And as I said before, just to get my self-care, you know, after you do extra self-care, just to get myself to my normal neutral emotional state. So please show yourself some grace as you're showing grace to other people as well. And I am going to stop sharing that. Okay, cool. Let's go back to those 3 questions that the leadership experts said we should focus on, okay? We just looked at the first question, which is how are you taking care of yourself? And I want to talk about an important practice right now that can help us to answer that, as well as answer the second and third questions. How are we taking care of others, and what are our priorities right now? Okay, so I've mentioned the words anxiety and uncertainty. Right now, the farther into the future you look, the more uncertainty there is, and the more your anxiety is likely to go up. Okay, as much as possible, we want to keep our focus more in today and this week. What really needs to get done? What do you have control over? Do that thing. Okay, so what really needs to get done right now, what's really important right now, what can I control here? I'm going to take action on that. Okay, when you move into action, that'll decrease your anxiety. Okay, so identifying what's important right now, what you can control, moves you into action, decreases your anxiety. Here's how Dr. Rock put it. He said, this could include specific self-care activities like exercising, calling loved ones, and cooking meals, or other activities and choices like planning your schedule and restricting yourself to a certain amount of time reading or watching the news. Okay, so taking action on important stuff that you do have control over is a way to help yourself as well as help other people. Okay, so when taking care of others, what we want to focus on is not solving their problems, but helping support them in taking care of themselves. Okay, so you don't have to solve people's problems, you're just facilitating the problem solver. You're listening, you're holding space for them to figure out what's important to them and where do they have control, where can they take action towards what's important to them. Okay, you don't have to come in and do their important stuff for them, all right? And taking care of important stuff also addresses question number 3, what are your priorities right now? Okay, you'll want to get clear on this at work and at home, because there's no more business as usual. When this is over, we're going to arrive at some kind of new normal, and we don't know what that's going to look like. Plan for your priorities to be in flux for a while. Okay, so this is a really important practice. What's important that needs to get done currently? What do I have control over? And I'm going to take action and do that thing. Let's talk some examples. If you got laid off, I hope none of you do, but if you got laid off, that could create anxiety, right? Because you don't control when your employer calls you back to work or when you get a new job, right? What you would control is filing for unemployment, maybe, you know, brushing up that resume and getting that in good shape, and doing your self-care, right? That's what we want to do. Okay, so that's just one example, right? If you have an example, I'd love for you to go ahead and put that in the chat box. If you have an example to share, okay? So what's an example of something that's important This is the part you can control, and here's how you're going to take action. Okay, I hope a few of you will share right in the chat box. While you do that, I'll give a couple more examples. So I had a friend who said she was nervous about going to Target, but she needed printer ink. And I was like, we have the same HP printer here. Here's a black cartridge for you, right? And I just gave her some ink. When I go to the grocery store, there's a couple people I check in with and see if they need anything, right? What might you do to be of service? Something small is great. Call and check in on coworkers. How can you support them in taking care of themselves? Maybe it's just listening. As we said, people, may be experiencing more change and anxiety than normal or more than you are, and talking can help. So you might simply ask, how are you managing with your family? That's it. The thing I love about service is it takes care of others, but it also takes care of ourselves, because you get the feel goods when, you help someone else. But remember, do it from a full cup, an overflowing cup. Don't give away what you don't have to give. Okay, so we want to do this from an overflowing cup. It looks like we have a couple folks speaking up in the chat box. So Casey says, I've had difficulty staying on task and staying focused for the actual work that I have to do. Hey, that's a lot of us right now. Motivation is down, focus is down. When your anxiety goes up and your primitive brain is taking up cycles telling you, things are wrong, then it's going to be harder to stay focused for sure. Go back to that meme again that says, hey, you should be developing a side hustle and learning a new language. You should be taking care of yourself. More than one of my clients had reported to me, they're like, oh, I'm really struggling in the afternoon, I'm tired. And I'm like, why aren't you taking a nap, right? We can right now, we can do that. If you can take a power nap for 20 minutes and come back at something refreshed and be able to think better, sure, do that. Oh, I've been donating where possible, food banks and blood, donating blood, that's great. My family has been having Zoom calls with older relatives that don't have much to do at home. That is so terrific. I think the elderly are some of the first people to really experience social isolation. They were the first to kind of lock themselves in. They really have to pay attention to social distancing because this virus could be just so damaging to them. So I think that that's terrific. If there's older people that you know of that you can check in on, that's a great thing to do. Thank you for sharing those. So we talked about the leadership experts, 3 big questions. How are you taking care of yourself? How are you taking care of the people around you? And what are your priorities right now? And then you take action on those things in your control. All right, so I want to draw your attention to something, and that's if you do these 3 things, right, you are setting yourself up for success now and after this crisis. Okay, think about this, because you are going to be healthy, you will have built trust and your relationships, and you will have taken the care of the people and things that are important to you. Okay, so if you do these 3 things, these 3 practices, and that includes when we start to come out of safer at home, things are going to keep changing all the time. And who knows what's going to happen next fall and winter with this thing, right? Things are going to keep changing. Keep coming back to these 3 practices, okay? They'll keep you healthy, they'll keep your relationships in great shape, and it'll keep you accomplishing what's most important. Are you going to accomplish everything? Are you going to clean out closets and paint walls? No. And that's okay right now. It's okay. Some of us don't feel super motivated to tackle big new projects, and that's all right. So if it's okay here, I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to wrap up my remarks, and I want to see what questions you have. Please type any questions you have in the chat box at this time. If I haven't addressed something already that you're wondering about self-care, success, fine. If you want to ask a broader question, I'm happy to answer that now. And I'm going to share my screen one last time here while you all are typing questions in the chat box. I'm going to share my screen. And that's my contact information. As I said, I'm going to go ahead and do a blog that kind of summarizes this webinar today. So if you want to sign up for my blog, it's like once or twice a month. You're not going to get a lot of mail from me. You can do that at jenfrankcoaching.com, right on the homepage, over to the right. If you want to link into me, great. And I'm happy to be a resource for you. If you have a question after today, feel free to get in touch and ask me your question. Okay. So I'm going to go. I'm going to unshare. Jessica, will you drop my contact information right into the chat box for people? Because I'm going to unshare my screen so I can see the chat box again too. Let's see what we've got here. How do you recommend handling informing your employer that you need time to self-care at this time? Good question. So I don't know the details of Daniel's situation here. And what the for example the hours are, what the shift looks like, that kind of thing. I think a lot of folks have new responsibilities as far as work goes. Some of them are working longer shifts. Now they have more responsibilities at home too, and they don't have a lot of time. Certainly people who are first responders, people who work in the medical profession, and God love all the people out there doing all the support functions, you know, keeping the grocery stores open and the mail carriers and all these things. They're so important for those of us who do feel kind of isolated at home, but we can get the things that we need. If it depends what self-care is that you need, right? I mean, I wouldn't be specific about what self-care you need, but if you need more time to take care of you and or your family, I do think that it's worth talking over with your supervisor to see if they can be, for example, more flexible about your hours. If there are certain hours in the day where you really need to be home, for example, I think it's fine to ask that. I think that employers will be as responsive as they can. Daniel, if you want to, you know, kind of add anything more to your question, I'm not sure if I'm answering it well, but you can definitely talk to your supervisor about that. And even you might be seeing that other employees are having the same issues, and a couple of you might want to, you know, talk to your employers. So it's not just one person asking, but if everybody's kind of being affected the same way, maybe you even have a possible solution to recommend. Okay. The big thing is that the organizations want to get the work done, and if you can come up with a way to get the work done, and all they have to do is be a little flexible, then that's great. If you kind of take the problem to your supervisor and you kind of dump it on them to fix, it won't be received quite as well. I hope that I answered the question. Danielle, some of my relatives are still congregating with one another in close proximity. Do you have advice for managing your anxiety when loved ones are not carrying out social distance recommendations? This one is really hard for people. We saw our vice president do this the other day. I think was he visiting Johns Hopkins, and everybody has masks on except for him. And it's like, how do you tell people, like, hey, put a mask on, right? And this is family members too, and will they be open to that? So when we give people feedback like this, it's a little difficult. We don't want to shame them, and we don't want to shame them in front of the group. If it's better to take somebody aside later and say, hey, you know, I'm worried about your health and mine and our whole family's health, and I would really love it if you could wear a mask when we're all together. You know, that's just working a boundary, right? Bring the behavior to their attention, say its impact, ask for the behavior you want. Okay. Now, will they do it? Not necessarily. If it's one member of the family and a couple of you want to speak to that member of the family, great. But do it from a place of care, not from a place of irritation. Okay. Do it from a place of care, because the person receiving it's going to get defensive, right? So we don't want to attack them or overwhelm them or outnumber them too much, but we do want to say something. Hope that answers that question. James, any advice, best practices to evaluate your circumstances and take the first steps to start building a development plan to focus on during this time period? So that's interesting because workplaces are changing so much right now. I think that when I go out, especially when I speak to young professionals, I'm always encouraging people, be in charge of your own career, be in charge of your own development. Sometimes you have an organization that has a development program in it for young professionals, but it is kind of rare. You kind of have to seek out these opportunities for yourself. For example, I teach for Embark, the program for young professionals through New Memphis Institute. But it's always your job to be in charge of your development. And that means seeking out those opportunities for education or your leadership, or it could be in the community or at work, maybe working on a project, things like that. So you always want to have your radar up and be asking about those things. How to do it during this time period is really interesting. If you know a deficit that you already have, well, then it's something you might be able to address. A lot of the online courses are discounted and free right now, right? So if you need to brush up a specific skill, terrific. If you need to introduce some healthier habits, okay, great. It's just going to set you up for, to do well once this is over. So if you need to introduce those now, terrific. Do you feel motivated to do that? Maybe, maybe not. That internal motivation usually comes from your feelings center, not from up here. So this is nothing that like you can, think your way into. If you're telling yourself, well, I should, that means you don't want to, right? It's like, what do you really feel connected to from a priority standpoint? How do you want to develop yourself? What do you wish you were better at? What would you like to be better at? What do you aspire to? And if you get in touch with those things, you'll know if, is that something I can take on right now? Do I have the real self-motivation to do this right now? I do encourage y'all to be graceful with yourself. If you're not even sure where to start and what you need, you might want to ask some people. If you never get a 360 done at work, if you never get feedback at work, you might want to ask some people who work with you, what's one thing you think I really could work on developing right now? Because some people aren't sure. They're really not sure. And don't expect for every supervisor that you have to be able to give good feedback. That's kind of rare. It's a skill, and a lot of supervisors don't know how to do that well. So you can always ask colleagues or a mentor or a family member or a partner that as well. Any other questions? Anybody else want to put a question in the chat box? One thing we didn't talk a lot about, well, I mentioned it really only with regards to the news. I didn't talk about what drains your cup. We talk about what fills your cup, but I didn't talk about what drains your cup. So right now, if news is anxiety producing, that's something you might eliminate. It could be there's other things that you need to, kind of eliminate as well, or things you say no to, or things you ask for help with. Okay, so just don't be afraid to reach out and ask for help. Selfish gets a bad rap, right? It's like, oh, self-care is selfish, and it's like selfish is bad, and it's like, well, actually it's your job to take care of yourself. And the research shows that people who are selfish, they're healthier, their careers are better, their relationships are better, and they're happier. Okay, so if somebody calls you selfish, you can just say, you're welcome, because what that means is you're meeting your own needs. And so underneath it, energetically, you're not grasping at them to meet your needs for you because you've already taken care of yourself. Okay, so one thing, I want to hear one thing you're going to remember for today and do differently as a result of information you heard today. Maybe you got a new idea or something that you already knew and you just want to remember, I got to keep doing this. I got to keep doing this, or I need to start doing this thing. It's important to me. So I want to hear one thing from today in the chat box. And you may need to put this on your calendar so you remember. How to quiet my primitive brain. Yes, it's got lots of feelings for you. Ask the question the Buddhist monks always ask. Am I okay right now? Is anything wrong right now? And it's like, no, I'm good. I'm good. Right? So yeah, get focused in the present and get don't think too much about the future there. Okay, I learned I don't have to feel guilty about taking care of myself first at this time. No, this is like that, what they tell you on a plane, right? When the oxygen masks drop, you put yours on first, then you help others, right? Because if you don't keep that cup full and you keep taking out of your cup and your cup gets empty, you're going to be sick. You're probably going to end up sick. My goal is to just prioritize self-care in general as a more conscious effort. Yes, you have to be intentional about this. Set aside times to do the things that you care about and help detach from the normal day-to-day. Absolutely. Yes, power naps. I love it, Leslie. We all need a power nap now and then. You know, if you know what your top thing is that really takes care of you and you're in a household with other people, you can ask them and say, hey, would you support me in doing my number one thing? So while I do that, will you watch, you know, this kid or whatever that is? And if you have a partner or somebody else in your family, you can just say to them, what's the number one thing that takes care of you? How can I support you in doing that? Okay. So that's a thing that you can use as well. Thank you very much. It really was great to be here with y'all. I'm sorry we didn't get to meet in person, but it's been a privilege to spend time with you. If you need anything, shoot me an email. That is absolutely fine. And I'm just going to turn it back over to James for his final comments, and we'll get out of here on time. Thank y'all.
All right. Well, again, thank you, Jen, so much for doing this for us today. And I hope that everyone found some value in the wise words that she shared with us. Again, we are extremely excited as YPC Young Professionals Council to continue to be able to provide events to our members. This was our first virtual event. I feel like it was great. I definitely left with a lot of great advice. We will be having more events. Please feel free to check out our website. You'll get email notifications about those events. We will continue to do the virtual thing. Again, we'll try to have some networking events in the future, maybe some power happy hours here and there. So it should be a good time. But again, if you have any questions, suggestions, feedback, our door is always open. Always feel free to reach out to us. And with that being said, have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Adios.